Um, on behalf of CHTA, it's a pleasure to welcome you to today's session, where we'll be discussing Generation Z's travel motivations and how hoteliers in the region are coming to understand this generational shift of travelers. What does it mean to operational and marketing strategies, and how do Caribbean hoteliers and tourism industry stakeholders adapt in order to tap into this rapidly emerging market? Uh, each generation and demographic of travelers brings their own interests and motivations into the marketplace. How businesses understand their needs and interests has a direct bearing on their very survival. For example, we know that earlier generations were primarily interested in a Caribbean vacation experience, which offered primarily sun, sand, and sea. Lounging on a poolside beach chair, often getting baked like a lobster, was often considered a badge of traveler prestige. Uh, uh, Going beyond the walls of a resort, except perhaps to a popular attraction or market, was rare in the past. Many of the industry's earlier clientele wanted menu items which were familiar to them, like steak and fries or pasta or whatever. And American-based fast food restaurants were sought after in the Caribbean by our travelers. But shoppers often look to purchase crystal and china. You don't see that anywhere anymore. Or inexpensive souvenirs with the name Grenada or the Bahamas on them until you turn them over and saw the sticker that said where they actually came from. While those traveler characteristics still exist, we're seeing the emergence of a new traveler whose interests expand beyond the past traditions. Hoteliers and tourism stakeholders, which are recognizing this, are broadening their opportunities and customer base. In this morning's session, we're going to explore this shift, providing supporting data and ideas as to how hotel operations and offerings are shifting, and how that is affecting not only the operational and purchasing practices, but also how it requires a shift in marketing and communication strategies to meet and motivate this new traveler. So today's session has been put together by CHTA's Tourism Linkages Task Force, which has embarked upon a number of efforts recently to identify and advance industry practices which create a better connection between the rich and diverse, unique local offerings of our destinations with those of Gen Xers and future generations. With that, I'd like to introduce CHTA's chairperson for our Linkages Task Force, the CHTA immediate past president and noted hotelier from Jamaica, Nicola Madden-Gregg, who will also introduce our fellow panelists. Please note that we've allowed sufficient time for some Q&A with you, the audience, during the latter part of our session. As we go along, we encourage you to place your comments and questions in the Q&A section on the site here, and we'll aim to address them during the session. So over to you, Nicola.
Thank you, Frank. Morning, everyone. I hope everyone is having a brilliant morning and great Caribbean sunshine throughout. And for those elsewhere in the world, welcome. And we hope that the spirit and the warmth of the Caribbean touches you wherever you are. As Frank pointed out, this is a panel and a webinar that is designed around the Linkages Task Force. And so while we're talking about Gen Z and what their motivations are, it is in the context of the broader linkages strategy. This is something that we have been working on for a time here at CHTA, and we want to see how that melds into what the traveler is looking for. So the linkages strategy for the region is not just about ensuring that tourism impacts the broader economy, but that it does it in a way that also attracts the travelers that we are looking for. So I'm going to share my presentation. Just give me a second here, and then we'll get cracking for the morning. Let's get it to slideshow. So as I pointed out, we are looking at the Gen Z opportunity, and we're looking at the power of linkages. So as we reimagine Caribbean tourism for the next generation of travelers. You have always been introduced to me, but I'd like to introduce our panelists who will be joining us shortly. Omar Robinson, who is the General Manager for Sandals Royal Plantation. Sandals International has been a chain of hotels within the Caribbean that has embraced the linkages strategy for some time now and have utilized that in many ways to continue to diversify and push their products forward. We also have Gregor Nassif, the founder and CEO of Secret Bay, and who is also our president-elect of CHTA, who will be taking over the reins from our current president, Sanovnik, later in the year. And he has been, in his own way, on a very, very serious linkages strategy, but heavily involved around the aspect of sustainability and environmental preservation. So they're going to share their thoughts with you, some of them a little bit more strategic in terms of attracting this market, but also just why linkages is important and why it makes sense for our businesses. So what we'll cover the shift in traveler values, the global Gen Z data, we'll look at that. We'll look at the Caribbean's emerging opportunity, as well as some strategic recommendations. So who is a Gen Z traveler? These are persons born between 1997 and 2012, and they're no longer a future segment. They're already booking in the region, and they're already influencing where people travel in the region, whether it's telling their parents or their grandparents or friends and family. They account for 22% of all tourist arrivals that now travel under the age of 26. 26% of them share of the under 26 arrivals have been captured by the Bahamas. And this destination is the region's leader in attracting the Gen Z traveler. So the Gen Z also 60% of them took vacations in 2025, and that is the highest rate of any generation. So this is a generation that really has embraced travel, and from a very young age. So we will have them for a very long time. They want to discover and not just to make a checklist. They are more willing to step outside of their comfort zone than the average traveler. 83% of millennials and Gen Z travelers prioritize unique, authentic experiences over popular tourist attractions. Now, this is a major shift. They're much more adventurous, and they're looking to see how they can have an authentic experience, interacting with locals, enjoying local experiences themselves. As it says, 80% of travelers leaving their rooms in their itinerary for unexpected local discoveries. So while they're also planning ahead in terms of what authentic experience they want to have, they're also leaving space to discover new and exciting experience while in destination. So that's important to note. They also prioritize memories over marvel. So all of us as hoteliers are looking to make our properties look fantastic, but at the same time, we also have to remember that they are willing to save money on flights and rooms to fund unique experiences. Now, those unique experiences can be on property, but they also are going to be off property because, as I stated before, they're looking for local authentic experiences. They want to interact with the population, and they want to share those experiences with family and friends back home. So the old model is to prioritize room category and brand prestige. You book through your travel agent or your OTA. You expect curated package itineraries, and you measured values in amenities and square footage. The Gen Z guest is prioritizing memories and authentic local moments. They tend to book direct. They plan via TikTok, Google Maps, and AI. And they want spontaneity and room left to discover, and they measure value in story-worthy experiences. So very different in terms of how they look at their travel experiences. And while we are not letting go of our legacy travelers in terms of your Gen X's and your baby boomers, the pivot towards what the Gen Z and millennial guest is looking for is very important. So one of the things we want to highlight is that food sells the destination for this particular segment. When they are looking for a holiday destination, food outweighs weather and shopping in terms of what they want in their influence of experience. This one just really highlights that they are looking, young Britons visit local supermarkets abroad to discover foods they can't get at home. 36% shop for local beauty products as part of the travel experience. And 1 in 5 plan to attend a gig or concert while traveling. So the events market is very important. So when we look at linkages, we tend to look at manufacturing, agriculture, and the creative industries. So that's a 3-hour hit right there. From the top end is we're looking at agriculture because, of course, food is agricultural. In the middle, in terms of products, manufacturing. And at the end, creative industry experiences in terms of concerts or other sort of entertainment venues. So again, we're seeing how linkages is really tying into this segment. I wanted to share this because this is one event that happens in Jamaica that really leans into the millennial and Gen Z market. And this was a look at the economic impact of Carnival in Jamaica in 2024. And as you can see, there was a significant expenditure, both in terms of its total economic impact, which was at the time 95.4 billion. But when we look on the linkages, it was a strong multiplier, not only in tourism and hospitality in terms of accommodation, which brought in 3.9 million US, but in retail and entertainment at 2.7 million. And the creative industries was at 331.4 million spent on costume production in the island. We also saw in terms of spend, hairdressers, nails, makeup. So throughout the region, we are seeing where small entrepreneurs, medium-sized entrepreneurs are playing into the events market. We also want to highlight another event that was pretty much a major impact, and that was in Puerto Rico, where Bad Bunny did his concert. And we saw where cultural and travel boost the demand, and persons were really, flight search soared when this concert was announced. So this segment of the market is looking for entertainment. They are looking for local experiences and authenticity. So as hoteliers, it's not only about showcasing your hotel and resort, but showcasing what's happening in destination to attract these travelers and looking at partnerships, which I'll discuss a little further on. So where do they discover us? They discover us on screens. They tend to book direct. Hotels who aren't visible in these channels, as it says, are invisible to them. 88% follow at least one travel influencer on TikTok. 58% feel confident using AI to plan and book travel. So that's a space we need to pay attention to. And 40% use AI specifically for destination research. So we're saying the Caribbean is already reaching to this market. Bahamas, as we mentioned earlier, is one of the destinations that made the shift early. So the 26%, which we mentioned earlier, that Bahamas is able to carve out for this under 26 market. But we're seeing a 12 to 15% annual growth in ecotourism and wellness tourism, outpacing the broader regional market. Sustainability is also something that the Gen Z traveler is looking for. So it's no longer niche. This is one of their priorities. And these are some of the hotels that we're seeing that have actually been using authentic experiences at a local level to ensure that they're reaching this market, but also doing it in a sustainable way. So we have sea turtle conservation. We have guided tours in Trinidad, as well as mangrove eco walks, rainforest hikes done by the Wyndham in Puerto Rico. So to sum up what the Gen Z travelers are looking for in 2026, these are their top 10 priorities. Number 1, authentic local experiences. 2, social worthy experiences. Wellness and mental well-being, adventure and personal growth, sustainability and responsible traveler. They're also looking for events and entertainment, value for money, very important for this market. Sorry, I jumped over that. They're looking for digital online to be able to look at that, flexibility and freedom, and definitely connection and shared experiences. So focusing on this market is something that is really where we need to look at, and destinations that continue to promote local culture, sustainability, ease of technology, wellness, and engage in storytelling will attract this influential generation. So what does this mean for business? Again, as we said before, authentic storytelling, short form media content, which they absorb on TikTok, local experiences for sure, sustainability, wellness offerings, event-based travel, ensuring that technology is easy and accessible, value-added packages, personalization, and of course, the ability to connect. But what does this mean for purchasing from a linkages point of view? This is an operational shift that hoteliers need to make to align sourcing and inventory with the Gen Z demand. So you have to localize your supply chain. As we said, they're looking for authentic experiences. Food is a top priority for them, and they want to actually experience local cuisine. So you have to look at how you work with regional farmers, fisheries, and artisans, as they are looking for food as one of their top drivers. But we also know they're looking for experiences, not just finishes. So excursions, guides, and activity infrastructure is important. But as hoteliers, we should also look to support and work with local events planners to drive experiential tourism options. We have several hoteliers, including my own hotel, the Courtly Hospitality Group, where we work as a sponsor partner and accommodation partner for some of the major events that happen in Kingston. And we've been doing this for maybe 20 years. We have even, gone further and deeper into this kind of partnership, because there's a recognition that it's a win-win, not only for the event planners and the event producers, but for us in the accommodation sector. So we want to also build conservation into our product. Again, they're looking for these experiences where they can go to sustainable activities, and it's not just a policy page. They want to actually be able to share and show that they have contributed to some change in the society in the destination that they have visited. We also want to right-size inventory for flexibility. So we want to look at adding smaller curated room categories and shorter stay packages instead of the just bulk inventory. So we have to see how we pivot as we continue to go after this Gen Z market. As we mentioned before, for marketing, lead with short form video, make direct booking effortless. They are ones that are definitely looking at AI to assist them in their trip planning. We want to sell the story, not just the amenity lists. So marketing should focus around local culture, food, and experiences, how we discover different things along the way, always leaning into your culture and authenticity. And they also want to put sustainability credentials up front. So you want to showcase your conservation partnerships, your ecotourism programs as a headline feature and not just a footnote. Okay, so basically we're saying the window is open now. The pivot must take place to focus on experience, authenticity, and digital reach. And every island and every hotel in the region, we are competing for the same travelers. But right now, we need to align our purchasing and marketing budget with the recommendations that we have made so far before the 2027 booking cycle begins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask our panelists to really lean into what they have been doing, whether in a strategic way or maybe just because they know it's good business sense to do it, and how this can work with the Gen Z traveler. I'm going to start by inviting Mr. Omar Robinson from Sandals to take us through some of his thoughts on this matter. Omar, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Good morning to all our viewers who have joined us. Now, as you know, Sandals Resorts have been in operation since 1981, so that's 45 years now. And we've always been a locally, as in local, the Caribbean grown, and starting from a Caribbean family, the Stewarts. Now, what we launched last year was our Made of Caribbean brand campaign, which showcases our resorts as being authentic, our resorts as being, linked to the community. And as such, we want to show that we're truly Caribbean. All of our I think 97% of our management is all Caribbean, and they've all come through our system, and we're proud of what we have achieved over the last 45 years. So our Made of Caribbean campaign,
on
which was
your camera, interrupting you, but we're not seeing you.
You're not seeing me?
No, we're not.
I'm not sure, but
Nicola, yes, I was seeing Omar.
Yes, I was seeing him.
Okay,
We're all
great.
seeing
Sorry.
him.
Sorry.
Right. Not a problem. So the Made of Caribbean campaign was a global advertising campaign to spotlight the Sandals Resort's deep regional roots into the Caribbean region, local culture, and what are authentic island experiences. And every one of our island offers a unique island experience. It shows that the brand focuses on regional adventure, food, and local connection. So there is local integration, which encourages guests to leave resort properties to experience local street food, mountains, rivers, craft vendors, just to, get into the local communities and see the resorts. So a lot of it is just, instead of just being passive and coming to the islands and just doing just sun, sand, and sea, we want to encourage a lot of our guests to go out and taste the real island that they're in. So the campaign also challenges a stereotype that the all-inclusive resort seems to want to wall off our guests into staying within the walls of the resort. We want them to go out and see the outside country. So within Sandals, our love for customers to go off property and explore, the local scenery, street food, and really connect to the Caribbean. At some of our resorts, we have what we call our Island Inclusive Dining program, which is designed to lift the traditional all-inclusive barrier by actively encouraging guests to leave the resort property and spend, money at local restaurants. And we also partner with some of our restaurants in some of the islands where we're, ranging from casual wood fire grills, wood fire eateries to contemporary food fusion spots, ensuring that the local culinary talent benefits from the resort's clientele. Now, in terms of our linkages, the linkages will vary depending on the island. An island such as Jamaica with 8 resorts, and where there is a lot more locally produced items, we tend to support those. We buy locally. In Jamaica, 72% of our overall products is through local vendors within Jamaica. 98% of our food and beverage is with local suppliers. Most of our food and our fruits and vegetables come from local suppliers. We have programs with our locals, with our local farmers, and encouraging them to plant and we can buy from them, and which results in most of our products coming out of Jamaica. We've sourced over 3 million pounds of locally grown produce within the last year, and that says a lot, instead of importing, which helps with the tourism leakage. Locally produced eggs, and poultry. We have a thriving poultry market here in Jamaica, and all of that comes through our local sources. An island like St. Lucia, 63% of our product spend is with local vendors. We've sourced, 400,000 pounds of locally grown produce and bought local eggs. With some of the other islands where there is not a lot of production, not a lot of, the farming sector is not as high as Jamaica. We tend to import, whether it's from, from the other islands, or we import some of those items. But a lot of it depends on what the island produces. Or even within the Caribbean, we tend to prioritize our local products, or Appleton rum. Even though the islands have their own Appleton rum, have their own rums, we prioritize, our Blue Mountain coffee or Appleton rum is in all our resorts. So it showcases that integration among the islands and buying local products. We've served over millions of Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee in our resorts, and we're upgrading all our coffee shops into what we now call Bloom, which features local Blue Mountain coffee, highlighting the integration within the region. The resort, as a group, we're focusing on expanding local procurement, and just this regional impact. There's a strong commitment to sourcing from local and regional suppliers, and as such, we're focused on growing that. Now, in terms of the further linkages, we have artisan and craft integration in our resorts, where we feature local woodwork, soaps, jewelry, and ceramics in our resort shops. We have local pop-ups. We invite our craft vendors to come into the resorts on a weekly basis, and so that they can showcase their own work, and it's an artisan village. They can do their work. Customers can see them, producing the woodwork or the painting right there. So it's giving them an opportunity to showcase their work, and also an opportunity to sell their own products. We've also provided business, branding workshops, helping them to just be better entrepreneurs. So that's, we spreading our tentacles and helping them to better showcase their products, and refining their products so that they can have a better product to sell to serve our customers. Now, through our Sandals Foundation, which was launched in 2009, so it's 17 years old, Sandals Resorts continue to make differences in the lives of our Caribbean people. All the costs associated with the foundation is borne by Sandals, so 100% of every dollar donated goes back into the community. We focus on 3 pillars: the community, education, and the environment. For the community, we create and endorse initiatives that engage and inspire people through skills training, sports, health initiatives, which help tackle social issues in all our destinations and help strengthen communities. Within education, we upgrade schools, donate resources, computers, textbooks, etc. We just saw in Jamaica, where we suffered our worst catastrophe through Hurricane Melissa, that the foundation is working to restore schools in some of the most badly damaged areas, putting back roofs, getting kids back into schools, and just helping so the community at large, so that education continues to be a focus. And in environment, we support local fish sanctuaries. We work with local fishermen. In some of our resorts, the fishermen bring in the fish, the catch of the day, and our chefs buy it and prepare it for the guests. So it helps to support the linkages. We also have what's known as our reading road trip, where we encourage our visitors to go into the schools and read with the kids. They bring back, there's a pack for purpose. They bring books and whatever school items, and they go in and they help the kids. They read to the kids. So there's this constant, focus on just taking our guests out of the resorts into the communities to see how the locals live and how they can contribute. And we've had a lot of our guests who enjoy that. They want to go out and see, they're becoming less passive, more active, from turtle release programs, which occur, throughout the year. We've had some on our resorts. Last year at my resort, we had 4 on the property itself, but we also encourage guests to go out and get involved in the local community. And as such, a lot of people, they want that. They want a more active vacation. Also, through our Sandals Corporate University, which was launched in 2012, so that's now 14 years, we've been able to educate most of our employees, ranging from we have over 20,000 courses, and over 20,000 employees have completed courses throughout our its existence. We have had assessments done. We have had over $2 million US in scholarships to our employees. So it's our corporate social responsibility there goes far beyond just really upgrading our employees and making sure that they can provide consistently for their families, and that spill-off goes into the community. So a lot of it, it's really about making the communities better. We also have a circular food waste program, which we work with the local farmers by funneling segregated food waste back into community, to support the local livestock development. So a lot of what we do is really to upgrade, to improve the local linkages. or local entertainment. We feature all authentic local entertainment where guests, can immerse themselves into it and create their own stories and create these wonderful TikTok, Instagram videos for themselves and just enjoy themselves when they come on the vacation. So a lot of what Sandals does is really about building those communities, working with the local people, integrating into those communities so that we can upgrade the lives of the people who help to support our resorts. And that's what our whole Made of Caribbean campaign is focused on, as we showcase that we're more than just resorts. We want to highlight the communities in which we operate, and as such, we want to get our guests out into those communities. Nicola.
Thank you very much for that, Omar. That's a very comprehensive look at your programs and activities. And from one big international chain, we're going to now go to a small, very focused resort in Dominica. Gregor, let me hand over to you.
Okay, I was on mute. Hi. Thank you, Nicola. Everyone seeing my screen okay?
Yes, we are. Just
Okay.
go
So I'll
to
try to give yeah. Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I'll try to go through very, very briefly some of the things that we are focused on. So GEMS owns 2 properties. I'm the founder of GEMS, the 6-star Secret Bay property, which is an all villa, 2 Michelin key Relaine Chateau property, and then our 4-star Fort Young on the edge of the city, very, very vibrant. Now, one of the things I want to say, firstly, I stutter, so sometimes I speak a bit slowly. And at the same time, I want to be very quick with this to leave time for Q&A. So I will try to summarize some of the Gen Z trends and then some of what we do. And I want to make it absolutely clear that nothing we have done or do is to pursue a particular market or trend. It's just something that we've always done, and we think that the core of what we should be doing is to maximize the connection between our guest and the island, Dominica, and therefore it is critical that we are maximizing the sense of place and the connection between the properties and the island. So we are very focused on protecting nature. We have a conservation program, the empowerment of people, both the employees as well as all of the partners in the ecosystem that we work with, and of course to maximize our contribution to the local economy. These are kind of the 3 pillars in terms of what we do, essentially to ensure that tourism leaves more value than it extracts. One of the things we have started from this year is actually to change the way we measure the success of business and to shift from a volume-based metric to a value-based. So for example, we measure the percentage of the dollar that comes into the business and stays within the local economy. And right now, both properties are in the high 80s. And our target is that 90% plus of the gross revenue for the business stays within the local economy. Like Sandals, we're at 97% plus in terms of local employment, and we now actually measure the environmental footprint, the energy, the water waste per guest per night. And it is absolutely important for us to measure these things and to ensure that we have the targets in place for that. Interestingly, we have foundation also. And while the properties are very focused in maximizing local sourcing and the contribution to Dominica, the purpose of the foundation is to strengthen the supply side. So the foundation works specifically to strengthen the supply chain that feeds the tourism industry, not specifically for us, but for the wider sector. And we have four pillars that we work with: education, entrepreneurship, entertainment, arts, and culture, and the environment. We have a staffed conservation program. We have a hospitality school. We fund small businesses that are providing services or products to the sector. And several of the winners of our grants have been able to grow and to increase their supply. So again, the foundation is entirely focused on strengthening the supply side of the supply chain for the sector. And both of our properties are Green Globe certified. That gives us a really strong framework. We measure our waste every day. We know what we're able to, for composting the food waste versus the plastics and the metals and the glass. We maximize the farm to table. As I said, we have a fully staffed conservation program. Turtles are nesting on our beaches and so on. And then we are very much focused on all the partnerships we create throughout the ecosystem. And we're very fortunate that from an energy perspective, we are now in a transition to geothermal, and we've always had hydro as a very significant part of the energy grid. So all of those things are really what we're focusing on from a sustainability perspective. And that's my brief presentation, just as an introduction.
Thank you, Gregor. That's very impressive. I'm really kind of excited about what you mentioned in terms of linkages that is focusing on the supply side of what your foundation is doing. So it's not just about reaching out and having partnerships, but going beyond to actually fund some of these partnerships by providing grant opportunities and I guess also developmental options and training and support for them. So that's really something that is commendable overall. I love what you're doing. So ladies and gentlemen, we have just heard some very interesting stories about ways to really use linkages to drive your product, but also that on the same side as I presented, the traveler, the younger travelers, the millennial, the Gen Z travelers are looking to partner and to experience their travel with organizations that have this as a focus. So that element of localization, authenticity, sustainability, all of these things that have been buzzwords over the years, but now form not just a part of just general operational policy, but we are seeing is now pivoting into something that is being driven by the market. So there's both a push and a pull factor that is happening here. So I'm going to just ask just a couple of questions of our panelists, and then we'll move to see if there are any questions from our from the audience. So just if you were now, I mean, in all of what you're doing, if you were saying to recommending or giving guidance to another hotelier, what would you say to them would be the first maybe 2 core things they should pay attention to if they are not doing any of this, never even thought about it before, never had a linkages strategy, didn't know what it meant in terms of their market or potential market? What would be 2 things you would say, focus on this and build from there? Gregor, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I just think it's important to start to measure what we're doing. So we're always focusing on the rates, occupancy, revenue, profit, and that's all critical and key, but let's start to measure some of the value-based things that we spoke about, how much we're sourcing locally, employment ratios, investment in training, what we're able to give back. And once we start to measure, we can start to build on that. The second thing I would say, and this is something I made a note of, we don't market any of this. And it's not a focus of ours, but clearly from the presentation that you made, there's a lot we should be doing in terms of how to structure and how to showcase this and the TikTok side of things and the storytelling. So those are notes I've taken of something that we need to focus on more. So thanks for that, Nicola.
No problem. That's why we're here today.
Exactly.
Omar, what would you recommend? What would be your two things that you would say to any hotelier listening?
Definitely, as Gregor said, measurement. You need to know where you are and, in terms of your local consumption. To see how reach out to your local associations, your whatever it is, whether it's here in Jamaica, we have, or RADA, which is our one of our local associations that help support farmers. Reach out to those associations to see, how you can help as a company to how you can help them. So that you can help them expand their offerings so that you can source from them. Look at items that are, items that you might import and see how best, if the local economy can grow those under the various weather conditions. But reach out to the local associations to see how best you can help them, for sure, definitely.
So as you both know, we are about to launch a demand study to look at what is it that the regional tourism product needs from an accommodation attractions. What are the supplies we need in manufacturing, in agriculture, in entertainment, in the creative industries. And that is going to be a very important part of how we measure where we are, and then seeing how we can encourage suppliers to the industry to build out capacity, because sometimes we get, the negative feed pushback to say that the Caribbean tourism industry is not buying enough items locally. And the other response is normally, well, we don't have the supply in the quantities or in the quality. So as we all look towards, ensuring that we move and remove some of those, strengthen our linkages, this is going to be an important factor. So I'm very excited that we're doing that. And of course, I'm sharing that. So we want to look forward to that as well. Would you say how scalable, Omar, are some of the things that you are doing? And for a small to medium-sized property, what are some of the things you would say they could start with or do to kind of move in this direction that it's not going to cost a lot of money? We say, yes, measure it. And I heard you as well, Gregor, you are at a high end of the market, as you mentioned, in terms of your product and maybe your ADR. Sandals also is at the higher end of the market in terms of its ADR and your room rates that you can achieve. So for a smaller property, maybe a more mid-scale property that may not have that kind of strength of pocket, what would be some of the things you could suggest to them they could do, and in a more cost-effective way?
Definitely, when it comes to sustainability, you can do small things. There are small things which you can do to help, reduce your footprint. Whether it's just through energy conservation, whether it's, a simple program like, working with our pig farmers, or the little things that don't cost a lot of money. You don't have to go and do all the expensive high-end, technology, but just work with your local people. Foster better relationships with your local farmers, so that you can get fresh produce. There's nothing more than having, your fresh fruits and vegetables coming into your hotel that is just coming from the farm. Guests actually love those things, and encourage, if you can work with local farmers just to do farm trips, showing our guests, like a simple thing as what we grew up with in the island, beach almonds. Guests were fascinated to know about these little things that we eat as growing up as kids. But a lot of them don't know how a lot of the fruits and vegetables are grown. And if we can foster those relationships, reach out to your local people. That's the easiest way I would suggest. Build those relationships with, and it doesn't take much. You know who some of these farmers are, especially in some of the smaller islands that you know everybody. Then Jamaica is a much bigger island with 3 million people, but even so, the larger islands, you know who the people are. Reach out to local associations, which is easy. You reach out to your fishing villages. You see how best you can incorporate more of that local fish, your local lobster.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Working with your National Hotel and Tourism
Working with the
Association
National Hotel and Tourist Association.
Who can put you in front of some of these persons as well.
Yes, for sure.
Gregor, quickly, if you want to jump in on that, and then we have 2 questions from our attendees. I'd want to just see if we can answer some of those.
Yeah, briefly, if you have a gift shop, I mean, look at the products that you have on sale and obviously focus on what's available locally, more authentic. We source all of our toiletries, soaps, shampoos locally. At Secret Bay, we have them custom made. So we have a lemongrass infused shampoo and a lotion made just for us, and it's really, really fantastic. So there are lots of little things. Single-use plastics is, I think, a good place to start from a sustainability perspective. To stop all single-use plastics, switch from plastic water bottles to filtered water with jars. There are a lot of small things you can do from a sustainability perspective. Arts, we have the only 2 fully functioning art galleries at Secret Bay and Fort Young for local artists to display and to sell their work. You can hang local art on your walls. I mean, there's no end to little things that you can do that's not going to cost very much, and people just need to be focused on it and need to start the journey.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I know I'm not on the panel, but I just would want to share that's something that our organization also focuses on. And simple things, as I said, partnerships. If you bring into your organization, there is, we partner a lot and do all these pop-ups where we have, every Christmas, the craft vendors, the local artisans. We also incorporate it in gifts, especially because one of our hotels, Jamaica Pegasus, is a heavy group hotel. So for those group planners that are coming, the welcome gifts instead of the usual T-shirts and the stuff
all
that
local items. Yeah.
Yes, go for local items, look for uniques. There's a company locally here in Jamaica, Bartlett's All in Wood. Lacey, I just have to big her up all the time. She does so many things that are made out of wood. So your coasters, your check presenters, so all of our check presenters are made out of wood, nothing plastic. So there are little ways you can start to convert your organization, convert your hotel. But let's go to some questions from here. This is, how do you bring the gap between the various generation of entrepreneurs to meet the needs of Gen Z? Who would like to take that?
From our foundation and the funding that we do for entrepreneurs, we're not specifically trying to direct them to Gen Z, but we're focusing on the authenticity, on the localness, the sense of place of the product. So I just think the entire industry is slowly shifting, because for me, this is not necessarily a Gen Z thing. All travelers, the silver market, multi-gen families are all looking for more authentic local experiences. They want to know that when they're traveling, they're contributing to the local economy.
Yes, you're absolutely correct, Gregor. That the customer, regardless of which generation, wants a more authentic local experience.
I guess maybe it's such Gen Z is more leading the charge. Maybe in the past, the other generations didn't put it as a priority, while Gen Z, it was something they were interested in, but it wasn't a decision point. if it wasn't there, I'm not going to go. Now it
Yes.
seems to be more that the Gen Z traveler is saying, no, this is a decision point. I need to see this, or maybe I won't go.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's throughout all generations, but it's a prioritization of how important it is for this generation in particular. So we have another question here. They said they're very happy in terms of what the private sector is doing, both of the presentations they've seen, but how are our general thoughts about the public sector? How can government incorporate these approaches given all the political and other barriers?
Nicola, we could speak from Jamaica, where we actively, in tourism, we actively have the Tourism Linkages Network, which you and I both sit on, which actively looks at ways in which we can encourage small and medium-sized entrepreneurs to gain access to the industry. And the government puts its money there, taxpayers' money, into funding initiatives to help develop, from incubators, tourism incubators, to different programs where we look at how we can grow the small and medium-sized entrepreneurs into showcasing, first of all, developing their business models and creating this product that is world-class, that not only your tourism industry needs, but on a wider scale. So that happens here in Jamaica through our tourism linkages.
I just want to add to that I think Jamaica was probably one of the first destinations that, from a government perspective, took lead in this area and established our Tourism Linkages Network, which focuses on manufacturing, agriculture, the creative industry, the knowledge. We have sports and entertainment,
culinary,
we have gastronomy, which I chair, right? So they did that, and Minister Bartlett, under his leadership, has continued to push forward. There are very specific events that we partner and do. Christmas in July, which is all about the small manufacturers who are looking to bring their products and services into the industry. We have speed networking, which deals with the larger manufacturers of products and services. I know St. Lucia also, through their hotel association, have a public-private sector partnership that, through their Linkages Foundation, is also very active. Right now, through CTO, they have now established a regional linkages committee, which is being chaired by Minister Bartlett. And on my end, from the private sector, from CHT, of course, we have our linkages task force. So there has been movement throughout the region. I think various ministers of tourism and other ministers are looking at this linkages, how it has worked in some of the destinations. And Bahamas is another one. The Dominican Republic is another destination that has been very aggressive in this area. They actually have the most success in terms of retention of the tourism dollar in their destination. And other destinations are looking to see how can they retain more of the tourism dollar in the destination and drive the economy more. So I do believe that the Caribbean governments are moving in that direction. Surely they're looking at the more successful destinations and, benchmarking and trying to move some of these policies into their own government policies. So, brighter days ahead. Not everybody is there yet, but just as we know, our hotels are not all there yet, our attractions are not all there yet. Webinars like these and discussions like these and forums are the place to share, inspire, and ensure that we all move in the right direction. Because at the end of the day, what we all want is that this industry can drive and build economies, but also provides generational wealth for Caribbean nationals. So, that's the focus, and I hope that answers that question. Moving on, we have two more. Bahamas had a larger percentage of Gen Z guests than other islands. What have they done better for the Gen Z guests experience, and how was it marketed to the Gen Z guests? I think Bahamas was just very forward focused. They saw the trend, and so they put emphasis on it, and their destination has been able to attract. They also have some products and that are very much in line with what the Gen Z customer is doing. So I just think it's now other destinations are focusing on it a little bit more, and we'll probably see some shift, but hopefully we won't see them lose share, but that the pie will get bigger. And so everybody will be able to grow their market without impacting any other destination. Okay, we move on. Do you have any ideas on how an organization can create these programs in the youth poverty areas to help bring these youths out of those areas? Gregor, I think maybe you want to answer
Yeah,
that one.
I mean, there are a couple of things there on our hospitality school side where persons come in from 6 to 8 weeks to 3 months. They do on the floor experience with training. There's a classroom component. There's an online component, and we put them in the kitchen through F&B, through maintenance, through different areas. And we don't look for just qualified persons or even persons that have been able to complete high school. So there's an opportunity just to expose persons to the hospitality business, and the talent that's out there is just amazing. Secret Base started with 8 employees, only 1 or 2 of which had ever had a full-time job in their life, and most of which didn't actually complete high school. So I think hospitality has a tremendous future for persons who are in that situation, and they need a helping hand to be exposed to the industry. And then, of course, um, getting persons to do some farming, to supply, to do some spearfishing, to supply. So again, you have to get into the areas and speak to people and try to create the awareness of what the properties purchase, what they can
Yes.
do, how they can do it, even for guiding, bird watching. We have some incredible guides, and we encourage also that they take new persons under their wings and do some training and so on. So it's
It's
those are
working
just
with
a
the
few
local
thoughts.
working with the local community organizations, as Gregor said, and just trying showing them what areas where the gaps are and how they can whether come into the industry to work or find ways to produce
Become entrepreneurs
or
themselves.
become entrepreneurs. Yeah.
I think for us, we take in a lot of interns every summer and
Yeah.
during because sometimes it's exposure, seeing what the industry is about, seeing where the opportunities.
Yes.
Too
Right,
much
right.
we find that the industry is only known for maybe 1 or 2 positions. They know there's a bellman, they know there's a waiter, but the people generally don't understand the career paths and the potential that you can have in the industry, whether you want to be an engineer or as executive chef. So many of our chefs have gone on to open their own restaurants, have become celebrity chefs, have their own catering companies. So you may start in the industry, but you may also become an entrepreneur at a later date. And some are entrepreneurs while being in the industry, so while working full time. So
Yes.
And
there's a lot of exposure that happens in the space. And I think it's getting to the young people and letting them see those options. And that's something CHDA does, of course, through its Education Foundation. And we individually, as in our own companies, do. And I know other companies throughout the region also focus on that. All right, we're going to move on. Is Gen Z more interested in cause promotion, marketing promotion of social impact than other generations? All the data is saying that. The data is saying that they're definitely more interested in the social impact than previous generations, or maybe it's just that the other generations were interested, but maybe didn't talk about it as much. Gen Zs definitely share. So you're very aware because they are sharing their life story online a lot more than previous generations.
Mhm.
So I think it's maybe a combination of factors, but it's a very important part of what they're looking for. So again, we're not trying to move into this space just to get as a marketing ploy. For us at CHD and for our organization and my organization and for the organizations of my 2 panelists, it is a life mission, right? and it's just also good business at the same time.
Yeah.
So
It's
so
definitely about how you try and make, as the company grows, how do you improve on the lives of both your team members and just the communities in which you operate? How do you make them better, so that the social if the social issues that you have can be reduced, because you want to operate in an island or a country where, everybody prospers. Tourism raises the
correct.
bar and everybody prospers.
Yes, and it's not an us against them. Tourism is not seen as any enclave. It is about prosperity for all and for all
Prosperity
Caribbean
for all.
nationals.
Yeah.
And again, showcasing the opportunities. Maybe your path is not in the hotel. Maybe your path is as a supplier to the
Right.
industry. And there's so much opportunity there, whether it's in manufacturing, in agriculture, in the creative sector, in other services sectors, whether it's legal services, accounting services. These are all things that, if we look at the tourism value chain, transportation spins off into other industries. And it's important that our viewers and persons all throughout understand the potential of what tourism can do from an economic spin-off and impact. Okay, I have one more question. Do you have any? No, we answered that. No? Okay, so we have answered all our questions online. I don't know what our time is like. I think we're just up on to closing. We are
Yeah.
1 hour in. I
Time to wrap up.
would just want to wrap up now and thank our panelists for an excellent contribution. Just showcasing that you don't have to be large to do this. We have small in terms of what the GEM organization is doing in Dominica. And you can start small. You don't have to do everything at one time. It's a process. You can move along the value chain, increase, measure what you're doing, look at what you're doing now, and see how you can continue to pivot. Sandals didn't do it overnight. As I said, they're a 40+ year organization. And so it has taken them time to get to where they go, but it's a vision and a focus. Similarly, for my organization, we are going into 30 years, and it has been over time continuing to focus on what we want to do. We are 100% local Jamaican employees, and we continue to work as the other organizations to strengthen our linkages, working with local partners, working with farmers, working with manufacturers. And of course, as Gregor mentioned, for him, it's I like what you're doing, Gregor. I'm probably going to now benchmark it in terms of the linkages component of working with organizations and, doing grant funds and looking at building out capacity within the local community. So there's a lot here that we have discussed and a lot of opportunities. And all of this, as we said at the very beginning, makes good business sense because the new markets that, well, not new so much anymore, the current traveler is looking for organizations, looking for companies who have a focus in this direction, who are putting this as a priority, and who are definitely delivering on authentic experiences. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. I don't know if our panelists want to say 2 last words as we wrap.
And tourism should benefit everybody. We are a tourism-dependent region, and as such, as the hotels develop and get better, and we attract more people, we should focus on making everybody, better in terms of what they do and how we can assist. So it's a matter of all, a rising tide lifts all ships. So that's our role.
And
Yeah, and I'll just say that I think one of the greatest gifts we can give to our team, the employees, our partners, is that sense of place and the pride that we all have in the island and what it has to offer in a complete way. And that's great. And then one of the greatest gifts we can give to our guests is that they leave with a lasting connection to the island and the full experience of the island.
correct.
And I think all of this is able to deliver that. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. So the culture, the food, the entertainment, the nature experiences, the people, the warmth of the Caribbean people. That's what we want to come fully through in your experience when you come to the Caribbean. We lead to those memories. Ladies and gentlemen.
While there are lots of similarities, we should showcase our individual differences that make each island special.
Yes, and each island is special in its own way.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you this morning for joining us on this journey to see Caribbean tourism reimagine, pivoting in a different direction, not just about business, but about ensuring the future of the Caribbean and building generational wealth for all Caribbean nationals. We thank you.